open the question here, because the sheriff hasn't been very clear there was a shooter, but that there was a shooting. This raises the prospect that somebody may have been attacking the temple in that vehicle, and perhaps somebody in security or otherwise may have tried to stop the person in the vehicle. So we're not terribly certain right now that there's a shooter, but that there was a shooting. But nobody inside the facility was injured or has been killed by this, according to what the sheriff has said. Nevertheless, there's clearly a federal investigation in addition to the local investigation of what happened and where is the person believed responsible for this.
Yeah, you see a school bus in the background. Scott, thank you very much for the pictures we're looking at. There's a reunification center. There were kids on site. There were teachers on site. We're told they've been taken off-site and are gathering. And as we look for new information here, we have a tweet from the governor of Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer, who says she's tracking these reports. She refers to the incident overall as heartbreaking. Michigan's Jewish community should be able to live and practice their faith in peace. Anti-Semitism and violence have no place in Michigan, and she is hoping for everyone's safety. Anna Schechter's still with me. Anna, you mentioned the broader context here.
Yeah, so we had a shooting in Austin, and we had a man who had a history of mental health issues, but who was wearing an Iranian regime flag on his person at the time of an attack, a deadly attack in Austin. That was right after the launch of this war with Iran. And then several days later, you have this incident in New York City. Now this, less than a week later, you have apparently an attack on one of the largest synagogues in the country. So this is very concerning. And, you know, when I talk to counterterrorism officials, they are always combing through. Their main job is looking for red flags online, looking in Telegram, looking on all the social media platforms. But it's impossible to catch everything. And you've had people like, for example, this apparently a vehicle ramming attack, possibly a shooting. It's really hard to identify those lone wolves. And all of these have been lone wolf attacks.
Yeah, and then there's a wider population of people who might have ill thoughts, but the population who take action is much smaller, fortunately. Michael Bouchard, the Oakland City Sheriff there, to your point, he was not surprised in that briefing he had with reporters. This was something that they had been concerned about for weeks, he was saying, leading up to this. I want to go back to Jonah Kaplan, who's joining us again by phone. Jonah, you have new information?
Yeah, there's a message that's being sent to congregants of that synagogue that the lockdown is still in place, but an active shooter has been taken down. The lockdown is going to be in place until they know the shooter was working alone. Again, reiterating that all kids and all staff are accounted for. And again, the truck rammed into the front door, opened fire. And also it's possible that the security guard, an armed security guard at the synagogue, was the one who was able to take down the shooter. Of course, we're going to need confirmation from that from local authorities. But I think there's two stories here, Tony, and that is one, of course, the shooting, but second is the preparedness. What you're seeing here is the system working, that everyone in the building was accounted for, and if indeed the security guard was able to neutralize the assailant, well, then you're seeing, again, the preparedness of these Jewish institutions for these kind of threats.
It's a surreal thing to think about, Jonah, as we look at pictures of kids' play equipment outside the entrance where there is smoke pouring and people leaving the building, sirens, flashing lights outside, and people in flak jackets walking in. But you're right, that security was in place for a reason, and it seems like on this day it was necessary. Joining us now is CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd. Sam, what stands out to you?
Well, Tony, I'll say it as a trained security professional, this is an emotional moment. As a mother, as an American, as a member of the Jewish community, it never gets easier seeing these images. And right now, what we are seeing is two lines of effort underway. We are seeing law enforcement officials neutralize the situation. We just heard an update from our colleague, Jonah Kaplan, and the communication does indicate that the active shooter has been neutralized, but the investigation is just starting. The investigation will look at who the active shooter was, whether the active shooter was in touch with other individuals. We want to make sure this threat stream is contained, and how, when, and why this individual mobilized to violence. That is all important to try to understand if there are other active threats to this community or others. Of course, the broader threat environment here is that there's a series of threats to the Jewish community, particularly after military operations in Iran. And finally, There are efforts to ensure that the congregants and their children are reunited as safely and quickly as possible. So all of that is unfolding now.
All right, Sam, we also have a statement that just came in from Haley Stevens, congressperson who represents West Bloomfield, Michigan. To the Jewish American community in Michigan and beyond, we stand with you. She says, to recap, if you're just joining us, CBS News is monitoring a shooting at a synagogue in West Bloomfield, Michigan. At this time, no confirmed injuries. It's a concerning situation. Our coverage will continue on CBS News 24/7, your local news, and tonight with me on the CBS Evening News. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Tony DeCopo.
Hi, everybody. We continue to follow this breaking news at this hour out of West Bloomfield, Michigan. This is about 40 minutes northwest of Detroit, where police were called to Temple, Israel, just before 1 o'clock Eastern time. According to its website, this is the largest Reformed synagogue in the United States. And according to the Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard, at least one person came, security saw him, and engaged in gunfire. They're trying to get video of what happened, and they're trying to figure out if more than one suspect is involved. The sheriff said no one at the moment is confirmed hurt except potentially this suspect, and it's not clear if the shots were fired from the suspect as well or if it was just security that engaged that person. But there is a shelter-in-place order for at least a mile until police say they determine no one else has fled on foot. The sheriff was asked, has the person been neutralized? And he was careful with his words. He said that person is not in custody. He was then asked, does that mean this person is still on the run? And he said it's a work in progress. So we are still waiting to hear exactly what happened, where this person is, who wanted to come to the synagogue and cause harm. But we know this is a big facility, a lot of land around it, and they want the shelter-in-place order until they get it secured. We should also note that this large facility does include a school, a childcare early childhood center, and kindergarten. But we do know that everybody, including the students and the teachers, were moved safely out of the school. In terms of security, again, the sheriff was asked whether security was at the synagogue, and he confirmed, yes, that they engaged the threat. There was a note sent to congregants repeating that all kids and staff at that school are accounted for. And we also know that the Jewish Federation of Detroit advised all Jewish organizations in the area to go into lockdown protocol, nobody in or out of your building. I do want to bring in right now CBS News Justice correspondent Scott McFarlane. And Scott, I just kind of set up some of what we know, some of what we don't know, but go ahead and add anything you would like or correct me if I mischaracterized anything.
Spot on. Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard, who's been there for decades, briefed reporters a few minutes ago and brought some of the top lines that nobody inside the facility has been injured. Nobody inside the facility remains. They have evacuated it, and they also have a shelter in place nearby, and that they've ratcheted up security at other religious facilities nearby, though they've already been on a heightened state of security in recent weeks and recent months. The emergent issue seems to be over. The broader issue now is what is the cause of this, who was responsible, and who was shot or did the shooting in the process. And those are answers I think we're going to get in the coming minutes.
And so right now, what can you tell us about the heightened threat environment? I know that in June, there was an alert sent out to synagogues, right? This, of course, was more in light of the Israel-Hamas war. But now, of course, we have the conflict with Iran as well.
It's been a series of alerts. I'm focusing on two in particular, both issued by the FBI and the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. One a few months ago warned of potential targeting of religious facilities, especially those associated with the Jewish faith, because of all that's happening in the Mideast, but also because there's this concern from the FBI of agitators trying to use that to mobilize and galvanize domestic attacks in this country. The other threat that's been reported by the Department of Homeland Security and FBI is about a surge, if not an increase, in bomb threats and calls, false calls or hoax calls targeting synagogues, Jewish community centers, schools, hospitals, airports, and other public institutions, but especially those associated with the Jewish faith. So that all precedes the last few weeks and the last few months where we've seen security increases in cities like New York, Washington, Chicago, Phoenix, Cleveland, Columbus, Tucson, all ratcheting up the amount of security they have outside religious facilities. And oh, by the way, they had them today in Oakland County, Michigan.
Scott, what questions do you have that you're going to be asking or trying to find answers to as this continues to develop?
The more immediate question is not just who's responsible. Was there a religious motive? From the outset, it seems that's a strong possibility. But also, how was this person neutralized or stopped? Was this person firing shots and stopped, or was this person stopped in his or her vehicle attacking the facility by someone who is armed security or law enforcement from the outside? That's immediate. If the person responsible for this is in fact dead, the immediate threat is over. If there is some miscommunication on that and there's still an active threat out there, that's why you see other religious facilities nearby on heightened alert.
Scott McFarland, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and bring in Anna Schechter. She is the senior coordinating producer for our Crime and Public Safety Unit. Anna, what more do you want to add?
Well, look at the heightened threat environment that we're in. It is not just a threat environment. You have real-world attacks playing out in the last 2 weeks. This increase in pace of these attacks. Within 48 hours of the launch of the war in Iran, you had in Austin a shooter who was inspired in part by this war, inspired by the Iranian regime to carry out a deadly attack in Austin. So that was in the early morning hours of Sunday. So that's 2 weeks ago. Then fast forward less than a week later, you have Saturday, you have 2 IEDs thrown right near Gracie Mansion by 2 ISIS-inspired young men, according to authorities. Less than a week later now, it's only Thursday. We just had a shooting at a Norfolk University a few hours ago, and then probably more likely tied to the global situation is this vehicle ramming and shooting attack on one of the largest Reform synagogues in the United States that is a community center, and children were inside learning as part of their school day. So it's just unbelievable. And, you know, when I talk to counterterrorism officials, this is the worst case scenario because all of these cases are lone wolves that were not on the FBI's radar, even though there was some amount of planning that went into at least the Austin attack and the attack in New York.
And so right now we are looking at aerial footage here of this complex, and we can see, and this was moments ago, we can see sort of this grayish smoke billowing out of the building. Obviously not a normal circumstance for this building to have this smoke emitting. So clearly something is going on. Have we confirmed that it was a vehicle that rammed in, or are we still waiting?
Yes, the Oakland County Sheriff, we just got word that a vehicle was rammed into the synagogue and shots were fired. It appears that a shooter was shooting and a security guard who clearly excellent planning went into this, almost immediately neutralized the suspect. We don't know if there was an accomplice. That is what locals right now are concerned about, local, state, and federal law enforcement. And that is why that lockdown for the mile radius around this synagogue is still in effect.
When you say neutralized, we know that the threat isn't over because police are still looking to see if there was an accomplice, and they want to scour the area and the large facility here, make sure nobody fled. They're gathering video as a means to do that as well. But do we know that this original suspect, when you say neutralized, is no longer a threat?
That is what we just got in. It appears that the security guard opened fire and shot the gunman, who not only was involved in the vehicle ramming, but also was involved in this shooting. It is unclear if there was somebody else in the vehicle at the time of that attack. It's a very fluid situation. And as you said, what law enforcement is trying to do is to replay every angle from security camera and slow that down in slow motion. And so they can see exactly what happened because there was so much chaos. But what I will say is the system worked in this case for sure, because it appears that every student, every child and teacher has been accounted for at this time.
All right, let's go ahead and listen to, I believe it will be Mike Bouchard, the Oakland County Sheriff.
It's still very, very early. Everything's preliminary. At least one individual came to the temple, Security saw him, engaged him in gunfire. The scene, we're not getting any active stimulus at the moment. We have everything here that we need, including, medics and tactical gear. We're looking to see if there's more than one person. We're still trying to figure that out. We're trying to get access to the video. At the moment, we just tell people that shelter in place for at least a mile area until we determine that there's no one else that maybe was on foot and fled the area, until we figure out exactly what's going on, number one. Number two, Reunification will be at the JCC, the Jewish Center, and that's where parents will go to pick up their kids. It's going to be secured by law enforcement, so no fear there. If you have nothing to do with the situation, don't go there. Don't come to the area. It's active and it's busy, and we're still trying to figure it out.
All right, and we do know that our own Jonah Kaplan did obtain what the synagogue sent out to its congregates. I'm going to read. Lockdown is still in place, but the active shooter has been taken down. Lockdown will be in place until they know that the shooter was working alone. All kids and staff have been accounted for and fine. A truck rammed into the front door and opened fire. The security guard supposedly took the guy down. I also just kind of want to reset with everything that we do know for anybody who is just joining us. And this is from the sheriff, Mike Bouchard, that nobody at the moment is confirmed hurt except for the shooter. Everyone's been evacuated. Jewish facilities in the area will have extra presence. And interestingly, Anna, and if you can add anything to this, that police have been in contact with the temple for weeks, prepared for, unfortunately, some tragedy like this.
That's right. The local police chief there in West Bloomfield has been communicating nonstop with the Oakland County Sheriff. They have likely been analyzing threats to this very synagogue. We know that when you have a conflict like what we're seeing overseas with Iran and the region, the Gulf region, the Middle East, the threat environment increases. What does that mean? Well, you have more threats called in, bomb threats. A lot of them are hoaxes, but this type of an attack, they are absolutely in a heightened threat position and stance. They might have run through drills on the regular over the last couple of weeks, because this is the kind of environment. As I was saying earlier, you had a shooting in Austin that absolutely, in part, what was the inspiration for that attack? It was the war in Iran.
It was just hours after the strikes, right?
Hours after the strikes at 2 a.m. local time in Austin, Texas on Sunday morning after the strikes. So less than 24 hours. And then fast forward, then on March 2nd, we know that one of the men, the man who threw the IED, 18-year-old Amir Balat, he purchased the fuse for the IED on the Monday, March 2nd. So within about 48 hours of the launch of the war. And then the following week drove from Pennsylvania to New York to carry out this attack, allegedly. And now here you have an attack on one of the largest synagogues in the country. So this is absolutely a pattern. It's a fact pattern. It is a pattern playing out in the real world. This is not just threats online where it's almost hard for law enforcement to handle all of the threats that they're seeing in the online spaces that they are monitoring.
Stick with us if you can. We are, for now, going to go to CBS News national security contributor Sam Vinograd. So, Sam, as police are working to secure the scene, make sure there are no accomplices, what is it that authorities will be doing?
There are two lines of effort underway right now, Lindsay. Certainly investigators at all levels of government, federal, state, and local, are looking to see what the identity is of the active shooter that reportedly has been neutralized. From there, they will be getting warrants and doing forensics on this individual's mobile devices, this individual's travel patterns, this individual's residence, vehicle perhaps, to try to ascertain whether this individual acted alone. Concurrent to that, there are going to be efforts to stabilize the community. And I use the community in two ways. With respect to the specific community in Michigan, children and people inside the synagogue need to be escorted off the premises safely and reunited with loved ones. That scene needs to be stabilized. But all across the country, and I say this as a member of the Jewish community, Jewish institutions, whether it be schools, offices, or religious sites specifically, are going to be reviewing their own security posture in the event individuals are inspired by what they're seeing on television right now and inspired to act out against additional targets. So this is a very difficult moment. It is not unexpected, but very difficult. And Jewish institutions across the country will be working to see if they need to enhance their security presence at all.
What is it that would, other than the global events that we're seeing, that would have prompted local authorities to make sure that synagogues in the area and around the country are secure? What is it about the current threat environment, or what the public does or does not know about what is going on behind the scenes, or what law enforcement may know that the public isn't privy to?
Well, I say this as the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. The Jewish community has been targeted for centuries by a range of actors. Most recently, over the past few years, including during my time at the Department of Homeland Security, the threats to the Jewish community escalated significantly from a range of actors, state-sponsored, Iran-backed, ISIS and others, as well as domestic violent extremists inspired.
Sam, are you still there?
I'm still here, Lindsay. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah. Can you say what you were saying again, because we lost your audio?
Sure. I was just saying there's a range of bad actors who have sought to do damage to the Jewish community for centuries. And over the past few years, a range of state-sponsored actors, domestic violent extremists, ISIS-linked individuals. And after operations began against Iran, that threat environment became even more heightened, as there were fears that the Iranian regime would direct its proxies, its surrogates, to conduct violence against Jewish institutions. What's happening behind the scenes is as well as additional resources for preventing bad attacks, more physical security on the premises of institutions.
I'm sorry, Sam. We're losing your shot, so we're going to work on making sure that connection is secure, because I do want to hear you finish that thought and what you were saying. But I do want to go to CBS News Homeland Security correspondent Nicole Skenga, who is joining us. And Nicole, what is the latest that you can tell us?
Yeah, at this time, this is a very fluid law enforcement situation. We do know that vehicle is reported to have rammed into the synagogue and started a small fire. We are working to confirm any reports, and we know that you just read that statement aloud, Lindsay, regarding the state of the perpetrator, whether or not he is in fact deceased. So working just to get that confirmation from law enforcement on the scene. We do know that FBI has been deployed to the scene, as well as Homeland Security investigations, that there is a big law enforcement presence underway, but there was obviously also a security presence outside of the synagogue at that time. And this is actually what Homeland Security officials have been very fearful of, particularly as the war with Iran overseas continues. In fact, on February 28th, there was a critical incident note from the Department of Homeland Security that circulated regarding the threat of lone offenders, and it specifically called out hate crime perpetrators attacking targets perceived to be Jewish, pro-Israel, or linked to the U.S. government and military. So, of course, this was a concern from law enforcement officials who were fearful and who had been, warning and in constant communication with faith-based institutions across the country, and particularly the Jewish community. And we know a number of security officials within the Jewish community, the ADL, Secure Communities Network, have been activated and are also trying to find out more information about what is happening in that very fluid situation in Detroit there, Lindsay. But, as Sam was pointing out, there is, typically a protocol in place. A lot of Jewish institutions will typically go through, unfortunately, training for these kinds of vehicle ramming incidents or active shooter situations. So still trying to find out more information. As of this point, we have not heard of any injuries or casualties outside of possibly a perpetrator there on the scene, but still trying to really figure out what's what, as investigators are going to probe to figure out where that suspect or individual came from, what the motivation was, if this looks like what it appears to be.
Really quick, just something that you had said. What does training for vehicle ramming look like?
Yeah, I mean, this is very challenging. Oftentimes it involves bollards that are placed around a physical structure or gates. Obviously, right now, we know that law enforcement is also possibly checking cameras that are around that vehicle, but it can be a very difficult thing to protect against. I mean, we saw, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago, as was the case around New Year's in New Orleans, that horrific vehicle ramming that occurred there. That have been similar situations that have played out in crowded areas in New York City. But typically, law enforcement, if they feel as though there is a special event or a reason why a lot of individuals would be gathering around a place of worship, they might place a police vehicle or law enforcement outside of a building, or they might build that building further away to prevent any kind of vehicle attack or ramming. But sometimes it is difficult to prevent this kind of situation from unfolding. And we'll see if moving forward, this institution or others take steps to safeguard against that.
Okay. Nicole Sganga, thank you. Let's go back to CBS News Justice correspondent Scott McFarland with some new information. Scott, what can you tell us?
Multiple sources tell CBS News that the person suspected of this attack today in Oakland County, Michigan, is dead, was taken down by security. And as we've been mentioning, there is enhanced security at so many religious facilities across the country, and the Oakland County Sheriff said this would be among them. So the person believed responsible for this attack by car at a synagogue in West Bloomfield, Michigan, is dead. The Oakland County Sheriff said an investigation is underway with local police, but we also see the FBI is on scene. You saw state police vehicles moving through that area. This is now a high-octane investigation with multiple levels of law enforcement trying to figure out who this person is and what this person was trying to do, perhaps why, here in Detroit.
Scott, we heard Nicole say that after the ramming that there was a fire. Was that a result of the ramming, or is it possible that this person set a fire up after ramming the car, the vehicle?
Yeah, and the local sheriff was asked about this. I think that's going to be a component of the investigation, though there's certainly the likelihood of somebody doing a vehicle ramming could also be responsible for a fire. If you look at those images there, you can see the nature of this neighborhood. There's a lot of open space in the area, but so many facilities, so many religious facilities in this day and age also have security bollards to prevent these types of attacks. And I suspect that's an investment a number of religious facilities are considering all the warnings and the alerts that have been going out about potential targeting.
Scott McFarland, thank you so much. Let's go back to, okay. Yes, I believe now that we have a hopefully more secure connection with our CBS News national security contributor, Sam Vinograd. Sam, can you hear me?
I can, Lindsay. Thank you.
And so the last time that you were speaking with us, we kept getting hits. Would you like to complete your thought?
Yeah, so I was just saying that there is such a diverse range of bad actors who seek to inflict harm in the Jewish community that intel, law enforcement, and counterterrorism officials are working this hard. There are just so many threat streams to follow. And what the law enforcement, intelligence, and counterterrorism community is doing is working to do what we call prevention.
Oh, it's not meant to be. All right, Sam Vinograd, we appreciate you. I believe we're able to talk to Anna, who is still here on set with me. Anna Schechter, senior coordinating producer for our crime and public safety, and you've been on your phone feverishly. Is there anything else you can share, or are you still just working sources?
Working sources. We'll likely get an identification confirmed very soon. So all signs are pointing a targeted attack on a synagogue, on the Jewish community at this point. Enough planning went in to do this, but clearly the system worked. The security guard took out the suspect very quickly, and thankfully there were no other injured people from inside. And you had probably hundreds of people inside this facility. This is a big facility, so normally you wouldn't think on a Thursday morning you have a big, large crowd of people at synagogue, but it's also a school. It's a community center, so classes were in session. So this is a place where you have more than 12,000 members. It's more than 3,500 families belonging to this synagogue. This is a big deal. This is a very this is, a soft target and a very symbolic one, given the size of this synagogue and Jewish community center. And notably, you see that there's a Jewish community center, which is a daycare, nearby, that all of the children were able to evacuate to. So, pretty significant Jewish community in this area, and with multiple visibly Jewish locations, and the suspect targeted the largest one.
What is this going to mean for security at these institutions moving forward? Because we had these bollards that apparently a vehicle was still able to. I mean, it's a bit eerily reminiscent to, and obviously different situation here. We have no idea any information about the bollards here at this synagogue. But remember the attack in New Orleans, where those bollards were temporary.
That was the first thing that came to my mind. Right, and the bollards were not up to par. The system did not work. It essentially failed there. There should have been bollards that did not allow that truck. That was another vehicle ramming attack, an ISIS-inspired attack on New Year's Day, 2025 in New Orleans. And the bollard issue was front and center. And security officials descended on New Orleans to do an evaluation and help the city improve their security. Now, in this case, you have already had this particular synagogue, for sure, we know that from our sources, had been having regular security briefings on threats. They had likely been running drills. They were definitely well prepared for an attack, especially since the start of the Iran war. But I will tell you, all of these religious sites have been in a heightened threat environment since October 7th, 2023. So it's hard to stay on heightened alert for more than 2 years because you get tired. But that is what these security officials need to do. And when I interview them, it's like they get worn down because of the increased number of threats and increased number of attacks. Let's look at last year. This is before the Iran war. You had 2 people shot and killed in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. You had an attack on a march for hostages in Denver, Colorado, just a few months before that. This is like a constant drip, drip. And then I think back to the Tree of Life synagogue a few years before that, the synagogue in Pittsburgh. So it's not like this is out of the blue happening. It's just the pace at which it's happening has increased.
And so when you say this is an example of the system working here, that isn't necessarily to prevent all horrific things from happening. But as far as we know right now, there is no injury or loss of life except to that of this bad actor.
That's exactly right. So when I say the system is working, that means that the bad actor couldn't exit the vehicle, start opening fire and shooting people because that security guard was well trained and handled the situation. But what I will say is, a lot of questions here. Was this suspect on the FBI's radar, on the radar of local police? It is impossible to pinpoint every potential lone wolf actor.
The 2 suspects on Saturday outside Gracie Mansion were not known to police.
That's exactly right. And they clearly had been planning it for at least a week because we know, and CBS News was first to report, that one of them purchased the fuse for those IEDs a little more than a week before the attack on March 2nd. So this is the situation that we're living in right now, and it really does feel un-American. Because 20 years ago, you definitely had more of a sense of safety, particularly I'm thinking of the Jewish community. And there's an ebb and a flow to this, and we are in a dark time when it comes to the threat environment, particularly at Jewish and Israeli sites, but at all religious sites. You've had a lot of shootings at churches. You've had threats to mosques. Every single religious group is in a heightened threat environment all day, every day. That's the reality of the situation right now.
All right, we do have statements from some lawmakers, including Senator Slotkin, who represents Michigan, who posted on X saying that she's closely tracking the active shooter situation. And I'm just reading this here as I read it to you. This is another frightening event that is still being cleared. My team and I will be in close contact with law enforcement. And then she says all communities deserve the right to worship safely. All communities and acts of terror and anti-Semitism must be condemned and dealt with to the fullest extent of the law. Scott McFarland, you're still with us. Before we let everybody know again who's just joining us what's going on, is there anything else you want to add?
You have a broader investigation now that involves the feds, the state, and local law enforcement. They're going to try to figure out what the motive was here, why this place was targeted, but also whether this is a standalone, as Anna called it, lone wolf attack, or if this is somebody who might be working in coordination with someone else, and someone else would then be deeming quite a threat to the religious facilities, not just in Southeast Michigan, but throughout the region.
Scott, thank you so much. All right, for everybody who is just joining us, we continue to follow breaking news at this hour at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Out of Bloomfield, Michigan, CBS News has confirmed the person who rammed their car into a local synagogue complex is dead. The Temple Israel told its congregants that security guard killed the suspect after that person crashed their vehicle into the building. So far, there are no reports of anyone being hurt inside the building, but we know this complex is home to a school. Police say all students and teachers have been safely evacuated. We know that a fire ensued, still working to figure out if that fire was a result of that ramming or something different, and still working to figure out exactly what that suspect did. Sounds like that person opened fire after that vehicle ramming. But again, our Anna Schechter is saying this was an example of the system working, a well-trained security guard neutralizing that person at what is, according to its website, the largest Reformed synagogue in the United States. And so we see this large police presence here, multiple agencies who are investigating. Again, it's not only 2:30 Eastern, but also 2:30 their local time. And our colleagues at CBS News Detroit have been covering this incident. Let's go ahead and join them.
Months to 5 years old. You wouldn't necessarily know that they're okay until they physically show up at JCC. So you are going to have a lot of families who have been personally affected by this, have lived some significant trauma today, wondering if their children, if their spouse, if their loved ones are okay. This is video from early. I keep trying to make it clear, and you can always look in the corner to see if something is a live photo or not, a live video stream. This is not live. This is from earlier, before our Eye in the Sky chopper was waved away from that scene. But this is what I was referencing in. If you watch closely, you can see adults running in and then very quickly running back out. And we imagine that was to transport those children and get them to JCC. Just getting word from the control room that Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard is speaking once again. You can see that. We're going to take that live in full for you.
A car came to the facility, breached the facility by driving into it, was engaged by security. We believe there is one individual deceased in the vehicle. It's been complicated because there was some fire, to say the least, with that vehicle. We believe that individual is deceased. No kids, this is the important thing, no kids or no staff was injured whatsoever. Okay? So we have no victims other than one of the lead security people was hit by the car and was taken to the hospital for treatment. That individual should be okay. So far, that's our information to this point. We have agencies from all over. Obviously, AETF is here, FBI. More than likely will be taking the lead on this based on some of the preliminary investigative information we have, but we're not going to go into that at this point. But we want to assure the community it doesn't appear to be anything active. We're still clearing the area. We're going to clear vehicles for any explosive devices, the building, etc. Unification of the families and the kids are in progress. We've accounted for everybody that we believe was in the building at the time. So we're on path to continue to maybe pivot to, is there anybody else involved, and the investigative side of what's happened.
So you confirm that it was security that shot and killed the suspect here?
Well, we can't say what killed him at this point, but security did engage the suspect with gunfire.
Did the suspect have a weapon?
We can't get into a lot of that stuff, but he breached the building, drove down the hall, and he was engaged by security.
So do we know, did he ever fire shots, the suspect?
Preliminarily, we have some information, but nothing that we confirm, so we're not going to go into it.
Where did he breach the building? The front?
He drove in through doors with a vehicle.
There was only one person in that vehicle?
That's what it appears at this point.
What do we know about this fire?
Something ignited in the vehicle. That's a work in progress. We're, through an abundance of caution, clearing the vehicle for IEDs or any explosives. We've got a significant number of bomb dogs on site, bomb techs on site, and all of that's going to be done to check the boxes. We have deployed resources all across the county, just in case, out of an abundance of caution, that there may be a secondary site, but we don't have any information at this time to believe that. So we want people to take a breath. No one was hurt. We're on top of it. The chief and his team got here fast. Everything that was supposed to happen happened. Security did their job, and then the responders did theirs.
Was it a Michigan vehicle?
Sheriff, what did the call come out as?
I believe it came out as an active shooter.
Yeah.
Where and when did you actually neutralize the threat? Where was it?
The vehicle's in the hallway of the building, inside the building.
He was shot right there.
Again, I can't tell you what he died of until we get a little further. We haven't actually gone into the car. It's still being cleared.
So we do know that the security guard shot this.
They shot
at them, but it's unclear if he was killed by
because in situations like this, you never know if somebody's trapped. Sometimes they kill themselves. So the suspect was engaged. Is the clearest sentence I can give you.
What is the condition of the security officer?
From information I got, he should be okay. He was knocked unconscious.
So it's a different security officer who fired the shot?
There were multiple security officers on scene, and the one that was hurt was pulled from that area by his team.
Where's the car registered from?
We're not going to get into the specifics on the car at this point.
You see what type of car it is there? A truck or an SUV?
It was a truck.
Sheriff, this is a West Bloomfield scene, a sheriff's scene. I know everybody's here.
Everybody's here, more than likely, based on a couple early pieces of information. The FBI may take the lead. That's yet to be formally determined.
Were there explosives in his vehicle?
That's yet to be cleared.
How much damage to the building from the fire?
That I can't even tell you. You couldn't even see the hall was completely clear. We had to send people in with gas masks to clear that area.
How are the kids doing?
All the way in the building.
Do we know how fast he was going?
It's hard to say how fast. I mean, he was traveling with purpose down the hall from my look at the video.
Chief, this could have been a far worse situation considering the severity of it, him getting into the building, whatever may have been in the vehicle. Talk about just the response, those security guards, and how this could be far worse than what we're reporting and seeing right now.
No, absolutely. In fact, what I would tell you is that I am deeply proud of the response, not only from the security that was on site, but also of all the police officers and the firefighters that are here right now. We train on active shooter events a lot. The county has a consortium, Oak Tech, that trains the entire county on active shooter tactics, and that's something that we believe in and that we support, and I think that training certainly helped to mitigate what happened here today.
And the chief has been in contact with all of the facilities for weeks, and not just on the last couple of weeks, but constantly forever. But in the last couple of weeks, even a lot more integrated communication. There are always, and all the agencies in Oakland County are partnering with their religious institutions and schools. Anytime there's a concern, there's communication, there's extra patrol, extra attention, extra warnings. That had all happened for the weeks leading up to this. And the team inside that building was very queued up. And I know the chief had communicated directly with their head of security weeks ago.
Were there directed threats at this specific temple?
There was no specific chatter about any institution or facility in Oakland County, but they were all on alert.
Sure, if we see vehicles leaving, is it all clear of an issue? Did the shelter in place still?
It's still in place until we clear vehicles and make sure there's no IEDs or other secondary potential. But we believe there's nothing active at the moment.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep. So it's likely that there could be another press conference here, maybe within the next 2 hours.
Okay.
Something like
Thank
that.
you.
Yep.
Guys.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, I was tapping to see if my mic was on there. That was a live press conference from Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard to recap for you some notable things that we just learned from there. That driver actually made it through the doors and was driving a truck down the hallway. They said the investigation has been complicated by fire. So earlier, as we were showing you those live images above Temple Israel with our eye in the sky chopper, we were confused about the billowing smoke, if that could have been a police tactic and perhaps smoke bombs. But it turns out there was a fire from that vehicle crashing inside. This is what I was just referencing here. We have confirmed the shooter has died, that he was engaged by security. Something Sheriff Bouchard was very careful about trying to convey here. They're not sure how that shooter died. They're not sure if he was shot and killed by the head of security at Temple Israel, or if perhaps the shooter knew he was trapped and then may have taken his own life. But regardless, it is confirmed that the shooter is dead. We now know the explanation behind that billowing smoke, and that the truck he was able to drive all the way down the hall. We learned that the lead security person was hit by a car and knocked unconscious. So we are still waiting for an update on his condition. One of the great things to come out of this press conference is Sheriff Bouchard said no kids or adults were hurt. So this could have been, I don't need to tell you this, but this could have been so much worse. This is the result of preparation yet again by our local law enforcement, the training that they go through to prevent something that could have been drastically worse. Sheriff Bouchard touched on that. All of these agencies go through active shooter training. This is something I think they were particularly prepared for, given our political climate and the global conflict that we are in right now. And this is yet again an example of them taking the proper steps and eliminating a threat very, very quickly. Everyone is accounted for. They're trying to figure out if perhaps anyone else is involved. But again, this could have been far worse. So as of right now, the only reported injury is that head of security knocked unconscious. We are going to go back to the JCC where we have our Hannah McElray live. Hannah, can you kind of bring us up to speed on what's happening there? For those who may not be familiar, the JCC is where parents were being reunited with children or loved ones who were over at Temple Israel, correct?
Yes, parents are being reunited here. There's also white buses up there that are helping transport people if they don't have a ride. We talked to one man. He said that his wife works inside of the J and that she is inside currently. Excuse me one moment as I let those sirens go past us. We talked to one man. He said that his wife works inside of the J and she's currently inside assisting in that reunification process. And as we heard from the Oakland County Sheriff, there's not an active threat right now. However, law enforcement is going to remain out here to help in the reunification process. As you can see up there, cars are lining up looking to reunite with their loved ones and take them off of the scene. Officers are also going to be out here helping move cars that were parked at the JCC to check them for IEDs and other threats at the scene at this point in time. Reporting live outside of the JCC, I'm Hannah McElray.
All right, thank you, Hannah, for checking in with us and giving us that update. If you are just following us, we are following the situation that's happening now at Temple Israel Synagogue. As Rochelle mentioned, one of the best things that has come out of this is that we were able to hear that all of the teachers and students are accounted for. Everyone is safe, and they are working now to start the process of trying to reunite those kids with their families. Of course, a lot of families understandably shaken and scared by the situation, even though we know that they are okay.
Yeah. We have confirmed the shooter is dead, that the head of security there was knocked unconscious after that shooter was able to drive a truck through the doors, which I imagine are substantial there at a place of worship, and all the way down the hall. We also got clarity on that billowing smoke that we saw for quite some time, that this investigation has been complicated by a fire subsequently from that car crash. So I am getting word from law enforcement sources that the head of security did shoot at the suspect, the person who crashed into the building, but they're just not clear yet in the investigation if the shooter was killed by that security guard, if perhaps the shooter took his own life because he knew he was trapped, or perhaps, if the fire comes into play. But Terrence, as you mentioned, this has been so terrifying for so many. West Bloomfield Township has a very large Jewish population. This has been ongoing for years, right? Concern about safety, about anti-Semitism has been particularly escalated in recent years. And this is just yet another reason to be in fear, based on faith and based on identity. And I think that's such a difficult component of this for people to swallow.
It is, but it also speaks to the importance of preparedness, which is something we talked about earlier as well, and the fact that they were able to control this situation so quickly. That becomes the situation because they were prepared and because they knew to make sure that they had everything in place to try to resolve this as quickly as possible. Something else that Sheriff Bouchard told us is that they are working now to check the rest of the scene because they are pretty confident that they have all of the teachers and students accounted for. Now they can move forward with other parts of the investigation, and that includes checking vehicles in the area for explosives and making sure also that the suspect was working alone. That's something else that they have to do. The sheriff also mentioned that he wanted people within a 1-mile radius of the synagogue to shelter in place just in case as they continue that investigation. And other nearby neighborhoods are sending out similar messages. The Dearborn Police Department also sent out a statement earlier saying that they are aware of the active shooter that is in West Bloomfield, and out of an abundance of caution, the chief has asked Dearborn police officers to increase patrols and provide additional attention to houses of worship and schools throughout the city, just as a precaution. So again, it speaks to the nature of where we are right now, Rochelle, and what we're seeing and just how tense things are right now. So we're going to go now back to the temple where we're hearing a news conference that is happening in progress. Let's get that update.
Beautiful community. West Bloomfield is a beautiful community of so many different stripes, yes. And we're a melting pot here of everyone, and everyone is supporting each other. And thank God they're aging clergy and they're doing very well.
Thank you, Rabbi. And Chief, you and I have talked many times about all the proactive measures that are taken to keep the public safe at religious institutions, including Temple Israel. This is certainly a situation you pray never happens.
Yes, no, absolutely. And I just want to reiterate to everybody that we do a lot of active shooter training in Oakland County. We work closely with OCTAC, who is the consortium that works with all Oakland County. And again, I want to say thank you to all our partners that have showed up today. We could not do this without everyone. And I also want to say one thing, and that is that West Bloomfield is a very resilient community. We will make it through this.
Yes, thank you. Sheriff, I know you talked about a lot of the particulars of what's happening here, but there's also a message about reassuring the public. What more can you add?
Well, as the chief said, I called all the chiefs together back in 2006, and we started training for active shooter, active threats, and we're all on the same page. We all pull together. If he needs something and I got it, it's his, and vice versa. So the community should know we work hand in glove. There's no barriers between us, and we're 100% in to protect the community. And we had been in communication, constant communication, all the time, but especially more in the last 2 weeks. We have been sharing intelligence and communicating regularly, and we have done the same with our houses of worship. So everybody was all communicating and involved. The time to get that relationship going is not during a crisis. It was well in place long before this happened.
And it sounds like security responded immediately to engage the threat.
Yeah, security did a great job. The head of security there is an old friend of both of ours, former police officer. And, I had actually been to that facility a number of times with him, and so has the chief. And so we were hand in glove with the private security there as well. They did a great job. The first responders from West Bloomfield, great job. So, as much as you hate to ever have to face something like this, hope and prayer is not a strategy. Preparation is, and we were prepared.
Okay, thanks, Sheriff.
Sheriff, can you say, though, with the past 2 weeks military activities, you've been more prepared? Is it too early to even talk about whether that's a motivation here?
100%, I would say we're always more prepared based on what goes on in the world, because we know that some people sitting in a basement are isolated and sometimes motivated and moved to action, criminal, evil action. And so that was our concern over the last couple of weeks, that increased our communication and preparedness.
Do you believe that's what happened here today?
The evidence will have to be run down to confirm or deny that. We don't know that, but obviously that's the first thing that comes to everybody's mind.
Thank you.
Rabbi,
could you say your name and spell it for me? Rabbi Brennan.
All right, I'm getting word from the control room after that press conference yet again from Oakland County Sheriff Mike Bouchard, who I think deserves some credit for how transparent he always is. I would say of so many agencies across this state, he is very notable for passing along what he has when he has it. That was his third or fourth media briefing in just the last hour, which we appreciate, and I know the community appreciates. We're going to go now to our Elaine Rojas Castillo. She is alive. Elaine, who have you been able to connect with? Someone inside Temple Israel?
Well, Rochelle, we're actually, with me right now is Sam Bennett. His wife works for J Family, and she was inside the JCC when this all happened. And he was talking to us before, but I wanted to talk to him with you so we could kind of get an idea of what happened. Sam, tell us about what the last couple of hours have been like.
It's been an incredibly difficult time. The Jewish community here is very, very close, and we all look out for each other. It's been very difficult knowing that my wife was close by to what happened. She works right behind us here at the J. And is helping now with the reunification of parents with their kids.
Okay, so before we talked a little bit about when you got the walk us through what happened. You said you were at court when you got a call, so walk me through that.
Yeah, I was leaving Oakland County Circuit Court after a hearing, and my wife texted me saying that they were sheltering in place at the J, which is always a bad sign. So I immediately turned around and made my way over this way, and got some more updates as I got here.
What has she been telling you from the beginning? Walk us through to right now. What have you heard?
The sirens were going off inside the building, notifying them of a lockdown, making sure that they all got under their desks and kind of hid and barricaded themselves in their rooms or in their offices. And they've just been kind of trickling in updates since. And now there's a really heavy police presence here, so I'm really hoping that we can get moving soon and the kids will all be back with their parents.
So you mentioned that she's a teacher for J Family, right?
She's not a teacher.
Oh.
She is she works for J Family and helps do the accounting and things like that for the group. She's a part-time employee.
So for people who don't know the layout of the space, obviously you said there was a shelter in place. Where she was originally, was she with children? Was she in an office? How did it work? Has she been able to share any of that with you?
She shared a little bit with me. She was in her office, which is just off the main entrance. You actually have to walk through the ECC or the Childhood Daycare Center to get to her office. So they had all the kids kind of huddled in with them as much as they could inside the office.
What was going through your mind when you're on your way here? You told me a little bit there, but I can't even imagine.
I don't even know if I can put it into words. It was a very scary few moments. As a defense attorney, I hear about things happening all the time and deal with it. But when it's someone in your own family, let alone your own community and everyone around here that we know and love, it's incredibly difficult. I didn't even know what to say. I just drove here as quickly as I could.
How soon from when you got here to when did you get any word from your wife that they were able to get kind of diffuse the situation?
I think that she told me probably as I pulled in or just shortly before I parked here on the street. So I don't know. I left Oakland County Circuit Court. It took me about 25 minutes to get here. So pretty quickly, I think I was advised that she was okay. We didn't know anything about what happened at the temple yet, other than that it was on fire. We didn't know anything more.
Has she heard anything about when she'll be able to leave? I know we're right by the reunification area. What have they told? What have you heard? Anything, if at all?
Hopefully, it should be soon. There is a high school, Frankel Jewish Academy, is in this building as well. So I know there's kids there and the ECC. So she said that hopefully soon, that once all the kids are reunited, we should be able to go home.
You said something at the beginning of our interview that the Jewish community in West Bloomfield is incredibly close. I mean, we've been talking to people. People have been talking to our anchors back in the newsroom. What does this do to this community? I mean, it's been incredibly overwhelming to be here, to be honest. What do you want people who may not live here understand about the community in West Bloomfield and how you're going to try to move on from this?
Well, I live in Huntington Woods, which is also a pretty Jewish city, so we're all going to be very close to each other. We're probably going to go to some, thankfully no vigils, no one passed away. But out here I have a lot of friends that were bar and bat mitzvahed here that actually had their kids at the temple when this happened, and so did my wife. So it's been a very, I don't even know what else to say other than just scary and just very relieved now that it's over and that everyone is okay physically. Obviously, the mental turmoil is going to last for quite a long time.
Well, Sam, I can't thank you enough for talking to us. I know that this isn't easy, but I know that people really appreciate hearing from you, and
Thank you.
I hope your wife is okay.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Thanks.
Rochelle, we're going to be out here for the rest of the afternoon, but as you can imagine, the energy is just incredibly heavy. You know, we've been hearing helicopters going off and on. We've seen a number of first responders coming in and out of this area. We were actually moved. I was a little bit further back. I was trying to get in through the JCC, and they moved all of us over here to be right across from the entrance. And just to see the amount of people that are not only stopping, whether they're connected to it or they're not, this is a really big area that people are really respecting the space, but also just trying to give the first responders the ability to do what they need to do. So, of course, we'll keep monitoring it from here. But like Sam said, the expectation is that reunification will be happening pretty soon. It's already started, and he is looking forward to being back with his wife. But for now, reporting live, Elaine Rojas Castillo, CBS News Detroit.
Yeah, I'm sure they all are. Elaine, thank you. Before we let you go, are you seeing any families that are out there waiting as well as they wait for that unification process? Are they there on the scene?
Can you repeat that for me, please? Sorry, it's just a little loud.
Sure.
Here.
Are you seeing any of those families out there on the scene waiting to be unified with their loved ones? What is the scene like?
Any families at the scene?
Oh, aside from Sam, we've seen a couple of people come in and out, but in terms of anyone that we can officially determine as family, it's been hard to see because where we are, just to give you an idea, if you want to like pan out just a little bit, we're directly across from the parking area, and there's a ramp that drives all the way up. So the problem with it is when it's blocked off that way, the access points are predetermined. So if there are families that have been able to get through, they've gone another way from us. Sam was really the only person that we were able to see in person that was willing to get much closer to where we were.
All right, thank you, Elaine. We'll check back with you pretty soon. And that story with Sam is just one of several. So many people who are waiting to be reunited with their families. If we can pull that video back up just to show you the scene of what we are looking at. A lot of those families waiting, obviously scared because of the severity of what has happened here. You can see the scope of that scene, and the police need as much space as they can get. Sheriff Mike Bouchard says at some point they are going to be working outside of the building to check those vehicles just to be sure, out of an abundance of caution, to make sure that there are no explosives or anything like that in those vehicles. Again, if you're just joining us, no teachers or students were hurt. The sheriff did tell us that the fire complicated things with all of the smoke that we saw billowing from the building, but again, no one was hurt. The person who did ram that truck into the vehicle, the sheriff says, was actually driving down a hallway. So you can only imagine the fear that that created for those young students and teachers as they had to shelter in place and take cover. They're still working to clear the area. It's just a sad thing that this is the world that we're living in right now. But the investigators have been very cautious with how they are approaching this, and they were very prepared, and that is one of the things that has really helped with this situation to make sure that they were able to get it under control as quickly as they were able to. Multiple security officers were on the scene, were able to take that suspect down quickly. Also told that multiple agencies are working together right now, and they say they've also been sharing intelligence even leading up to this point with each other and also with houses of worship. Of course, when there is a house of worship that is involved with something like this, the FBI also gets involved. So at some point, the FBI may be taking over this investigation, but we're still waiting to see where things go with that. This is still a very fluid situation. Obviously, as you can see with that scene, the chaos is still there. Those families are still waiting to be reunited with their loved ones. They were told to shelter in place, but again, everyone is accounted for. At one point, they were told to get under desks and had to barricade themselves inside of that building. Hopefully, they've been able to get the message that everything is okay and that that shooter or would-be shooter has been neutralized. So we're still working to get more information, but we do know that everyone is okay. We heard from other leaders there in the community who talked about the fact that this is a melting pot community and that they all work together, and that despite what has gone on even today, They want to move forward in unity and working together so that we don't see things like this happen again.
Absolutely. Terrence, I don't think I'm alone when you say no one was hurt or killed. Like, you just want to cry, because how incredible is that you had someone with arguably the worst of intentions in the world drove a vehicle through doors down a hallway, and that the training and procedures were in place to make sure no one was hurt. There are going to be emotional scars. There are going to be mental scars. You know, we know that a fire broke out in here, so I imagine some smoke inhalation and things of that nature. But we could be reporting something so vastly different than what we are right now. And for that, I think people are just kind of in awe and astonishment. This is heartbreaking, but again, could have been so much worse. I'm hearing from law enforcement sources, and it is not my place to say who this was.
We continue to follow breaking news at this hour at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield, Michigan, about 40 minutes outside Detroit. This happened around 1:30 p.m. A person armed with a rifle rammed a truck into the synagogue and was able to actually drive down part of the hallway. Security guards engaged in gunfire. We know the suspect is dead. Law enforcement sources tell CBS News the truck exploded and the suspect's body is so badly burned, making identification difficult. Investigators are trying to determine if there were explosives in the truck, as well as whether this person was working alone. This is a large complex. According to its website, it's the largest Reform synagogue in the U.S. It has a school on site. But thankfully, the sheriff said no children or staff are hurt. They all were safely evacuated. Multiple security guards were on scene. One was hurt and pulled from the area by his team because he had been knocked unconscious. And the fire at the site has obviously been a challenge for investigators. The sheriff said they had to send people in with gas masks to clear the area. He said there has been no specific chatter about any institution or facility in Oakland County being targeted, but they have all been on high alert. Anna Schechter is working the phones. She is joining us now. She's a senior coordinating producer for CBS News' Crime and Public Safety Unit. Anything else you want to add or put this in context to the time that we're in and all the other incidents that you've been covering?
Well, there is so much to say, because less than a week ago, we had an attack in New York, ISIS-inspired, authorities say. A week before that, you had a shooting in Austin that, at least in part, was motivated by the war in Iran. In fact, just a few hours ago, there was a shooting at a university in Norfolk, Virginia, which is a hub for military. And, you know, we actually have multiple sources. We're about to put out a note that the suspect in that shooting actually has a prior conviction on material support to terrorism. So this is crazy situation that we're in right now. It is really alarming. The counterterrorism officials that I talked to, I mean, they're cool, calm, and collected because that's their job. But this is what they're worried about. And unfortunately, these acts are being carried out in the real world. We're no longer in the online chatter department where you have an FBI informant and there's a case built. We've had a number of those in the last 18 months, including an ISIS-inspired Halloween plot where people were arrested in Michigan just last fall. So that, you know, is a best-case scenario where you want to have law enforcement get in there early. These scenarios, we don't know the specifics about this attack, but the New York City attack and the Austin attack, we would consider those lone wolves because they were not on law enforcement radars, and we don't have evidence that they were being directed by a foreign terrorist organization, even though those two men from Saturday are being charged with terrorism charges and being inspired by foreign terrorist organizations. So this is, I have not seen a threat environment like this in years. Wow. I mean, since I've been reporting on this in the last 20 years. I mean, maybe back in, you know, the early and mid 2000s, yes, you had multiple attacks, but it feels like we're going back in time to that period where you have multiple threats, multiple attacks that are either thwarted midway or, you know, we got lucky on Saturday where those IEDs did not explode. Unfortunately, this truck was able to ram into a synagogue and drive down the hallway. We've also learned our Nicole Skanga got in some reporting that the vehicle essentially exploded. And so it's been challenging for law enforcement to confirm the suspect's identification because the suspect was badly burned in that explosion.
Okay, we know there will be updates coming in. Anna Schechter, thank you so much. Iran's supreme leader has issued his first remarks since his ascension to power earlier this week. Iranian state TV read out the written statement from Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei earlier today in his prepared remarks, in which he was not seen or heard from. Again, this was state TV delivering the remarks. The supreme leader called for U.S. bases in the region to be closed as he vowed